unfortunately, when people are vulnerable and need help, if there's an urgency, there can be people that will try and take advantage of people. So I would just urge caution that you should only be getting advice from an attorney or an accredited representative. So just be really careful about who is advising you. And immigration is not just filling in some forms and sending it off to the government, right? You need advice to assess, inadmissibility issues, qualifications for certain things, to just do a holistic overview of what your immigration options are. So I just want people to be aware. And then secondly, where do they go to find this representation? So AILA lawyer, so that's the American Immigration Lawyers Association.
Immigrant tribes across the globe, welcome to the Immigrant Nation podcast. I am your host, Martin Dongo, and today, as we delve into the nitty-gritty of what's happening into the world, we have the pleasure of hosting Tony from the city of Chicago. She is an immigration lawyer. Fiona McEntee is in studio with us. Miss Fiona, welcome to the show, and how are you feeling today?
Thank you, Martin. I am feeling great. I am delighted and honored to be here, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Fantastic. So you've decided to put all your energy into immigration law. This is interesting because originally you were raised and I'm assuming you're born in Ireland, and then you moved to stateside for schooling and eventually settled here. Why did you choose to settle in the US, and why immigration law?
Yeah, great questions. So I am originally from Dublin. I'm a very proud Irish citizen and now a dual Irish US citizen. So grew up in Ireland. Never really dreamed of moving to the US. I know sometimes I've spoken to people and that's always been something that they have, wanted ever since they were a kid. Well, that really wasn't the case for me. It almost happened, I'm not going to say by accident, but kind of. I was studying law in a university in Dublin, UCD, University College Dublin. And they had these exchange programs where you could study abroad. And I applied, and I originally had picked Melbourne, Australia, I'll confess, as my top choice. And they picked me to go to Chicago instead. And I came here for a year when I was 20 at DePaul's Law School as part of that exchange program. And I really fell in love with the US and with Chicago. So I went back home, finished my law degree, and I moved out to then do further studies in law and got a Juris Doctor from Chicago, Kent. So that's kind of how I ended up in the US, and I found immigration law during my time at Chicago, Kent.
Nice. So I am kind of I am kind of disappointed that you did not fall in love with the state of Florida. I think it's one of the most beautiful places in the world, but that's okay.
It is beautiful. But you know what? Chicago is truly my adopted hometown. So
that is great. That's interesting because for most immigrants, we tend to settle to the place where you landed first. Was that the case? You chose Chicago, or you chose Chicago before you even got to Chicago?
I could say Chicago chose me in a way, because it was through the university, they actually picked me to go to Chicago. And I feel like there was this greater force there, call it what you will, but all the signs were pointing towards going to Chicago. So when I ended up here, and even when I was coming back, I had already lived here. So I thought maybe I would apply to law schools in different places as well, just to see what it was like in elsewhere. And, again, the signs were pulling me to Chicago. And as it turns out, I met my husband a few days after I moved back to Chicago. We were introduced through a mutual friend. So I just feel like there were all these things going on, and that was drawing me to Chicago and then ultimately to the practice of immigration law, which has been, just so rewarding.
When you say the practice of immigration has been rewarding, what has been rewarding about it?
I mean, look, it's every day getting to meet people like yourself, Martin, and get to meet, incredible immigrants and get to help them a little bit on their journey to whatever that American dream looks like for them. I mean, I think when I see some of the horrendous lies and just false like racism that's directed towards immigrants right now, right? I'm talking about Springfield, Ohio, and all that horrendous stuff that's being said about the Haitian immigrants. And I feel sorry for people that believe those things and that they don't get to see the things that I get to see. I pity those people because I know that immigrants always contribute more than they ever take from any place. And we are better for having immigrants like those Haitian immigrants here in the US, immigrants like you, Martin, like me. And I just wish everybody gets to see this. And that's why I think working, with immigrants from all over the world on a daily basis is truly one of the most special things that you can do.
I adore how you describe what you do and the passion you speak with it. Um, as you're speaking, I can't help but imagine the pain most immigrants go through. But before we get to the pain part, let's dig a little bit deeper to Fiona's early days in America. So you come to America, you're state sponsored. What is that experience like? What were some of the things you struggled with? For some immigrants in those early days when they move to other countries, they may struggle with culture, they may struggle with loneliness, they may struggle with finances, security, on and on and on. So what were your struggles and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right that people have struggles that, unless you've really gone through that immigration experience, it's hard to really put yourself in those shoes. And certainly I had a very privileged immigration experience. And I think I had a very privileged welcome, right? I am a white Irish immigrant coming to a city like Chicago to study law. I'm here in one of the most Irish cities in the world, right, outside of Ireland. So I absolutely had the green carpet rolled out for me and the welcome was there, right? And so my journey is absolutely privileged, and I really kind of take that in. Really, I'm very aware of that privilege, and I have always then tried to make sure to advocate for all immigrants to use that privileged voice in a way to make people see that also Irish immigrants were not always as welcome as they are today. And so I think it's important that we kind of view that through that lens. But of course, there were things that I struggled with when I moved here. I mean, I was really young and my whole family was back in Ireland. I'm very close to my parents and my brother, who later joined me here in the US. So, I think that there's absolutely that types of, just being far away. I also feel like I age myself when I say about the communications right back then. There were no webcams. There was like a separate webcam that you maybe could try to get Skype sometimes, but it never really worked. And we had minutes on our phone. So even if you received a call, it would take against the minutes. So you kind of had limited opportunities for communication. And so it's certainly a lot easier now with obviously just the ways that we communicate with people, and it's made it easier, I think.
Ain't it fantastic that you can just get on WhatsApp and make a free phone call? It's crazy.
Yeah, and you feel more connected. Yeah.
Yes, I can totally relate to you because I remember when I would run to the local store to buy a little business card and try to make a phone call, and most of the time it did not work, and you'd run out of credit and then do the same thing over and over again. But technology has changed, and as technology changes across the globe, what I have noticed is that immigrants are in the front line of changing that technology. Right? Look at ChatGPT, who are the brains behind it. If they're immigrants, look at Google, who's the brain behind it, is an immigrant. Every process and every asset that humanity has inherited in the last 20 years, there's an immigrant that is involved in it. And so relating to what you just said earlier, we are in an election year in the US, and in 2024, there's 20 major elections across the globe that are really, really important, right? And so the US being one of those places where elections are happening here in somewhere about 50 some days, there's a lot of hate rhetoric that is coming from either sides of the platform, but mostly from one side of the platform, especially when it's pushed by an ex-president and it's pushed by a VP. And so, as an immigration attorney, when you're sitting there looking at how politics are affecting immigrants' lives on a daily basis, how are you thinking that you would best advise those who are getting affected by that kind of rhetoric?
Okay, great question. First, I want to just acknowledge what you mentioned about the contributions of immigrants in relation to technology, and absolutely. And I think we need to be hearing and talking more about that. You know, if we look at the billion-dollar companies in the US, the so-called unicorns, over half of them has an immigrant founder. Over a quarter of them has somebody, a founder who came here as an international student. So kind of going back to the contributions that immigrants bring, it's always more than they take. And I just think it is, as you know, VP Harris would say, it's time to turn the page on all that negative, false narrative, and let's start recognizing immigration for the positive thing that it is, because it absolutely is. And we have all these stories and data points to prove it. To answer your question though, it is a very tumultuous time in the US and has been for the past, you know, however many years. And, you know, if we just look at DACA, right, for Dreamers, which was the deferred action, the protection from deportation that was put in during the Obama administration. I mean, people's lives are, you know, it's like political kind of ping pong, like back and forth, and it's on, it's off, there's court case, you know, this is not fair on people who are, a lot of them have, I mean, the vast majority of people are working, contributing to the economy. A lot of them have US citizen children. And so I think it's high time that Congress updated our immigration laws. And I think for people who are caught in this, you know, they need to understand that we have their back, and that we know that, you know, there's so many people that are here advocating for them. And I would say to, you know, just hopefully they can feel the support of groups like the American Immigration Lawyers Association, which is a group that I'm really active in, and a lot of other groups that are really like pushing for comprehensive immigration reform, the likes of Forward.us, United We Dream. There's like so many advocacy groups that are really here to kind of make sure that these voices have a national platform, and that hopefully we'll see some changes.
So let me slow us down, because I don't want us to get overtaken by what's happening. And just to throw this out, what's happening in the US is happening across the globe. It's happening in Dubai, it's happening in Europe, just in different contexts, right? But the US in the last 2 years, something happened. So if we look at the American immigration law, what caused the influx of immigration? Not to say that there was not an influx in 2007, which there was. And I was looking at the numbers, and the numbers are not quite different. So what's different between now and 2007?
Well, I think, to be honest, we need to even go way beyond that, right? Because I think we need to really acknowledge that the immigration system in the US is so outdated. It is over 30 years old, and it's just not equipped to deal with any of, you know, the current, you know, like way that people live, work, travel, migration, climate migration, like all these things, like unrest, political unrest, things that are happening in the world. And, you know, we have a 30-plus-year-old immigration system. So, you know, but who's responsible for updating the immigration laws? Congress, right? It's not a responsibility of the president. There are certain executive actions that the president can take, and there's policies that the president, you know, can implement. But ultimately, Congress is the one that needs to update the immigration laws. And I think, if we look at what has happened in the Biden administration, if you give people an alternative, like TPS if they're here in the US, or parole, if you give people an alternative that will work, they will take it. Absolutely. So that's what we've seen consistently, that people that there's an outdated system that is just not equipped to handle the current needs, and that there was a bill that was, obviously we know what happened to that border bill in terms of Trump putting in a few calls and, squashing that, thinking that it would be beneficial for him from a political point of view. But I don't think it is, because we all know what happened there. And ultimately, it is Congress's responsibility to update and modernize our immigration system. And we have to come together here to because it's ridiculous that we're dealing. I have immigration lawyer friends all over the world, and we constantly see the updates that Canada is making, that the UK is making, that Ireland is making, and the modernizations to their immigration system. And here we are, stuck in a 30-year time warp, trying with one administration that's pro-immigration, the other that's not, and then we're back and forth, and it's just like no way to really operate an immigration system.
So I read research from the Pew Research where they say significantly more Americans name immigration as the most important problem facing the US. But I was very reluctant about that assumption. Is immigration a problem that most Americans are concerned about because now it's a political push because of elections? Or is it really a problem in our communities, and hence Americans will push their congressmen, congresswomen, and anybody in administration so that we can get to a place where we resolve the immigration issue?
I love this question because it's very multifaceted, right? And I think back to when I started practicing as an immigration lawyer in 2007. Nobody had an idea what immigration law was, or that it was even a practice area, right? People were like, oh, so what do you do? Nobody had any idea. And there was very little conversation surrounding immigration. Okay, fast forward to today. You cannot turn on your TV, your screen, like screens, everything. It's everywhere. So of course people are going to think it's their number one issue. And I would say we need to reframe how we think about immigration. It's not a problem. It's always an opportunity, both for the US and for immigrants. And if we want to pull on like economic data, we can look to see how much immigrants contribute. We can all the data, we have it all there to talk about how, it doesn't impact the wages of US citizens. It actually increases, immigrants create jobs, We have all these stats that we can parrot off. But I do think that we need to have more of these conversations in the media so that not everything is focused on the southern border. And this is kind of my big passion right now is yes, the border is a piece of immigration, a piece. It is not the only piece of immigration. What about all the other pieces? What about the international students? What about the startup immigration? What about, like TPS? What about all these other pieces of immigration? What about the family immigration system? Where you have to wait God knows how long if you're trying to sponsor your sibling and you're from Mexico, right? You're waiting 80 years. There's all these other pieces of the immigration system. And I think that we need to talk about them, because people are, if all they're consuming is information about the southern border and the words that some people use to associate with immigration are just so divisive and demeaning and racist, like invasion and all these horrible words. Well, if people are consuming all that, of course, immigration is going to be top of mind, but the reality is it's probably not going to impact them at all. Yes, that's another great question. I personally view my role as an immigration lawyer as like, again, I think I wear different hats, right? They're all related to immigration, but they're different in different ways. So in the first instance, I am here as the managing attorney of the firm. I'm working with clients, advising them on their specific cases, advising my team, so on and so forth. It's obviously critical work. Another part of this, though, is what can we do to kind of talk about immigration in a broader sense, right? And so I actually take that as a very serious responsibility to try to see what we can do to educate people about the immigration system, right? And also try to influence change in Congress. So, I mean, I have done things like I've submitted a statement to a congressional hearing. I speak to members of Congress about the immigration system, and I talk to them about things that we see. I write a lot and speak a lot in the media about immigration. I've also written a children's book on immigration, because I think that this is a big responsibility. And but I also feel that, yes, there is obviously a lot of hate. There's a lot of racism, which, I am never going to be the victim of that, right? And I recognize that, and going back to my Irish immigrant privilege that I have, right? And so I see all these things, but I do also believe that the vast majority of Americans can get closer on immigration than we're led to believe, right? Or than we can see from polarizing things online. I think if you're able to have these conversations with people, and if you're able to, in a non-patronizing way, talk to people about what the actual immigration system is like, explain that, like, we don't have a startup visa, for example. This means that these high potential founders that are here as international students that want to, create the next Airbnb or the next Facebook or the next, whatever, we may be losing them to countries like Canada because our system is so old, right? I would talk to them about how there was an op-ed written by 2 Republican governors that said, in this day and age as well, that basically called Congress out for not passing any immigration laws, and saying that it's one of the most fundamental duties of Congress. And these governors actually called for state-sponsored immigration, because they were saying they need immigrants because their workforce is aging, and it's just they didn't have the population, and they had all these jobs that they needed to fill. So, I mean, I think if you're able to truly, and it is hard because there is a lot of hate, and there's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of anger, and there's just, and there's a lot of misinformation. But if we're able to, like, strip that all back and call me, a naive optimist, which, I call myself that in a way, right? If we strip all that back, I do think that we can get a lot closer than we are right now. So the book is called Our American Dream, and I actually had the idea to write it during the Trump administration, when the horrendous family separation at the border was happening. And I'm a mom. I have 2 kids that are now almost 11, which, you have to say the almost whatever, because it's important, right? It's not really 10, it's almost 11 and almost 9. But my kids were a lot younger then, and they were, we had the news on, and there was all this stuff happening, and they were like, Mom, they had questions. It was very hard for me to explain to them what was happening. And I thought, I'm probably in the best position to explain this, given the work that I do. And I felt like maybe other parents are struggling. They have to be struggling too, right? And then I also thought, how did we get to a point where we're ripping babies out of their breastfeeding mother's arms, and we're putting them in God knows where, and we're, essentially like, separating them with no plan to reunite them? How did we get to this point? And it didn't happen overnight. It was, it was like over a long sustained period of, like, kind of dehumanizing immigrants, using demonizing language, all this stuff, right? And I just thought, what if, again, kind of going back to what I said at the start, how I feel so privileged to be able to meet all these incredible immigrants every day, and I feel so lucky, and I feel like I want everybody to see this. So I thought of, what if I was able to write about some of the immigrants that I meet, and the end result is the book Our American Dream. And so pretty much all the proceeds are going to 2 immigration nonprofits, Forward.US's I Am an Immigrant initiative and the American Immigration Council. At the moment, I'm trying to get some of my books, some signed copies of my books that I want to get to Springfield, Ohio, so that those Haitian immigrants know that they are welcome and that they are, appreciated, and that there's far more people like me and you that understand, that they are absolutely valued. So that was the goal, and I think it's probably it's never too early to talk to kids about this idea about immigration as well.
Fantastic. So I really love the cover of your book. It was very self-telling, and I thought kids should be able to take onto the book very easily. Where can people find your book if they are looking to get a copy?
So we have a website, it's ouramericandreambooks.com. If people buy directly from the website, I can sign it, and then the nonprofit will get more of a donation as well. But otherwise, it should be also on Amazon, or perhaps independent bookstores as well might have it available, which I would always encourage people to check out their local independent bookstore. But yeah, so that is the book. And if anybody is in Springfield, Ohio, and they're listening, get in touch with me, because I want to get some books to the immigrant community there as well.
So thank you so much, by the way. That is very generous of you. For immigrants that are in some of the cities across the country that do not have work visas yet, do not know where to start or where to finish. They're here, but they don't know how to move forward. If you were speaking to that listening audience, what would be the steps you would have to walk them through so that they can find stability in their lives?
Yeah. So there's a lot of resources out there. I would just say a caveat that unfortunately, when people are vulnerable and need help, if there's an urgency, there can be people that will try and take advantage of people. So I would just urge caution that you should only be getting advice from an attorney or an accredited representative. So just be really careful about who is advising you. And immigration is not just filling in some forms and sending it off to the government, right? You need advice to assess, inadmissibility issues, qualifications for certain things, to just do a holistic overview of what your immigration options are. So I just want people to be aware. And then secondly, where do they go to find this representation? So AILA lawyer, so that's the American Immigration Lawyers Association, has a AILA lawyer search website where you can go on there, and that's our bar association. It's a volunteer bar association with about 15,000 immigration lawyer members. So you can go there. You can also go to, depending on where you are, like your local, in your city and state, there's likely like an immigration nonprofit that might be able to assist. So in Chicago, we would have the likes of the National Immigrant Justice Center, Legal Aid, there's a Resurrection Project, there's lots of different, I don't want to forget anybody, but there's like a lot of different groups that can be there to, kind of assist, and often there's pro bono clinics that attorneys will put on. We will put it on free of charge, where we are volunteering our time to do screenings, and that happens a lot here. CVLS, which is Chicago Volunteer Legal Services here in Chicago, and there's things like this in other cities. So I would urge you to kind of look into if you need pro bono assistance, there are resources there as well. And I just want to make sure that people are getting advice from attorneys that know what they're doing, and not people that are trying to take advantage of vulnerable immigrants.
So you're the second immigration attorney that we've spoken to, and I have to tell you, I'm so glad we have you on, because part of what we gathered from our previous conversations was that immigrants want to find advice from attorneys who have specialized in the field. That way they can be able to have those conversations and guide them in the right way. So for those of you who are listening, please pay attention to where you're finding knowledge and information that can help you with your stability here in the US, and of course if you're in other countries. Miss Fiona, do you have social media handles where our listeners can get a hold of you?
Yes, I'm on all the things. So on the likes of Instagram and I think like X, Twitter, whatever, Threads. I'm US Visa Lawyer is my handle on those things. And then our firm is McEntee Law. And then I'm also on TikTok, and I'm not dancing, but I'm putting out some videos. I think I'm like immigration. I need to confirm my handle. I think it's like immigration lawyer Fiona or something like that. But I do like short little videos for people on TikTok. And yeah, our firm has a lot of free resources available for people. We have tons of webinars. Actually, there's a webinar going on today with one of our attorneys, Natalia, is talking all about naturalization, so about the citizenship process. So we typically would do them, on Wednesdays normally, but not every Wednesday. And then every first Friday of the month, we have a First Friday, which is one of our immigration lawyers will jump on and do a live session on all the platforms, and they'll talk about the immigration news over the past month. We'll also take questions either ahead of time or live, so that's a great opportunity for people to jump on. And then we have a YouTube channel for the firm where there's recorded webinars on all different types of immigration, specific things like I have done about sponsoring yourself for a green card. Then there's a section on the new Biden administration policies for parole in place. So there's all different kind of nuanced immigration webinars that you can see on our YouTube channel as well.
So thank you. You one of those immigrants that I admire, because I did not have the courage to do this. You're a dual citizen of both Ireland and the US. So walk me through, why did you choose to be a dual citizen, and how does that help you in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, especially because yesterday, and I don't know when this will air, was voter registration day. And I did a post on my LinkedIn, which is also where I'm very active. So I would love to connect with people on LinkedIn. But it's so important to me becoming a US citizen. And I actually got sworn in when I was 8 months pregnant with my first child, with my daughter, Rose. So I have also a great time frame for when that happened. She's going to be 11 in October. And so it was, it's almost my 11-year anniversary of being a US citizen. But it was very important to me to become a US citizen because I wanted the right to vote in this country. And that is a right that I cherish and that I have absolutely used in every single election. It's important as well. If you're not a US citizen, you should not be registering to vote, right? And it doesn't happen, but just sometimes people might mistakenly think that they're eligible to vote, and it's not widespread or anything, but just to be careful that you don't inadvertently check a box when you're getting a driver's license, for example. So as a US citizen, the right to vote in elections is something that is just, I really cherish it so much. And something to note as well is, as an Irish citizen living abroad, I'm actually not eligible to vote in elections in Ireland. So there were years, and it's a lot controversial for members of the Irish diaspora who are living overseas, who feel, that we're a second-class citizen, so on and so forth, even though we are citizens, that it's like there's like different tiers of citizenship. So that is something that people have been working on for a long time. And votingrights.ie is the website. There's a group involved in that. So anyway, I was like in no voting limbo for quite a long time. So when I became a citizen, I immediately registered to vote and immediately got my US passport. And honestly, like, I still to this day will get emotional when I walk into that voting booth. And I generally like to vote on election day. Obviously you take advantage of early voting if people can, or, I've never not voted. And it is just so important to me, especially really fundamentally, that right to vote is just so important. And I hope that everybody who has that right is able to exercise it.
So we're speaking to immigrants across the globe, but I am going to appeal to you to please speak to immigrants in America for now. The reason why I say this is because the history of especially women going to the polls is a few decades old. And so when I have friends who tell me I am gonna abstain from voting, or they say I am not gonna vote this year, or they're not registered voters, it really gets under my skin, because I'm like, this is the one little exercise that you're required to exercise as a citizen of any country that is gonna push the decisions that affect you on a daily basis just 1 millimeter. So looking at the history of voting in America and the history of women voting in America, how would you advise immigrants across America to participate in this process this year?
So for naturalized US citizens, immigrants who are now US citizens, you absolutely have a right to vote, right, in the US as a US citizen. First off, you can't vote unless you're registered to vote. So that is the first thing. You need to get yourself registered to vote. And different states have different voter registration cutoff dates. So you need to make sure that you're up to date on that. There's so many different resources where you can check your voter registration, whether you can register to vote online, like to submit your registration online. There's lots of different ways that you can do this, but you're so right. As a woman living in America right now, as a mom of a daughter, I am petrified about what is going on with women's rights here in the US, and I feel so strongly about this. There are people's lives that are depending on it, and it is your vote, your voice matters, your vote matters. So I don't care who you vote for, right? I mean, I know where I'm going to vote. I'm doing volunteer work for the Harris campaign, and I'm on the committee Irish Americans for Harris. So I know exactly where I'm going to vote. But everybody should exercise that right to vote. And there are people who have died for this right to vote for people, and there's so much at stake. And if you look at the previous elections, things are, razor thin margins, right? I think people need to believe that their voice matters, and I think that we need it. Again, it's kind of like talking to people in an immigration. We're not going to have patronizing conversation. We're not going to talk down to you because you haven't voted before. We're going to empower you. We're going to encourage you. We're going to bring you to the table. We're going to have these conversations together, and we're all going to register, and we're all going to go out and we're going to vote, because that's what people need to feel. They don't want to feel like they are, made to feel less than, or they are, just like belittled. We want to empower people with information, and I cannot think of a better way than to get them registered to vote and to go out and vote and make a voting plan and encourage. It's not even like your vote. If let's say you're an immigrant here and you're not a citizen, you can't vote. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to people about their voting plan. This is like a team effort here. We're all in this together, and and I'm excited about the election, but there's a lot of work that has to be done, and it's not any one person is going to do it. We're all going to do it together.
So if I can just add on to your appeal, there is over 300 million Americans across the country. Not all 300 million of us are going to go to Congress or the White House or to the Senate. What gets us there is your vote. And so if we can listen to your appeal and actually participate by encouraging others and actually voting ourselves, if we can legally do so, there's no reason as to why we are not participating in this election cycle. Miss Fiona,
Yes, absolutely. One other thing I want to add, Martin, really quick, is that Americans living abroad are able to vote in the election. And there are resources to get them registered to vote, but there's also a more narrow time frame that they need to vote in, because their votes need to get back by a certain date. But there's tons of resources for people. I have been working with a group, and there's a woman in Ireland, Paddy is her name. She's doing incredible work for Democrats abroad. I don't know if the Republicans have a similar group, but there's resources for US citizens living abroad. So don't think that because you're a US citizen living abroad that your voice also, your voice counts too. And you need to exercise that right as well. And hopefully you can get those resources and figure out what you need to do to enable you to vote in the election as well. Sorry to cut in front of you, but I just wanted to emphasize that.
I appreciate that. That's really necessary. So you've been practicing immigration law for over 16 years. How has your perspective changed over the years? Is it the same as when you started?
No, not at all. I have to kind of take a breath in there for a second, because I'm like thinking back to when I started and how different things have, become, how different
Yeah.
I have become, and how much I have grown, and how much, I think about, the fact that immigration is everywhere now. It is omnipresent, right? This we're talking about it now. There's podcasts, there's news cycles, there's, just constant conversations surrounding immigration, which I think is a great thing. And yeah, do I wish some of them were a bit more balanced and were a bit more, I would say less focused on the southern border, and maybe more focused on all the other parts of immigration. Yes, I do. But I think, we can use this as an opportunity to really talk to people about immigration. And I think that, and I really do firmly believe that the majority of people in America, if they're able to, come together and we can have a chat about, the undocumented immigrants in the US, like 12 million undocumented immigrants in the US that are contributing so much, that are working really, really hard, that are paying taxes, they just want an opportunity to be able to regularize their status. And I think that the majority of Americans would be in favor of this if we can have these conversations in a way that is just like not confrontational, not angry. One of my lawyer mom friends said that I'm kind of in my Zen era right now, where I'm just like, can't we all come together? Which I will thank my therapist for that, which I think is a big thing, right? And I talk about this. It's like when you're working in such a pressure cooker of an area, it is very, very important that everybody's taking care of their mental health, and that looks like all different things to different people. But we're very open about this in our firm as well. We have resources where people can get access to therapists, and they can talk to people, they can get other resources. And so I think it's important, because there is like a secondary impact that we feel, dealing with a lot of like high pressured situations as well. And it can just, I think, encourage you to just, I don't know, just be more mindful about yourself, and kind of, because it is, it could be a 24/7 thing, but we can't let that be, because there wouldn't be anything left of us to help people. So we have to put on our own oxygen masks first, and then we can help people. So that's my plug for mental health services and therapy.
Yeah, so before last year, when it seemed like everybody's focus has shifted to politics and the presidential run, mental health was a big conversation across the globe. And part of our conversations with most immigrants is we are realizing that there is a struggle, and it's really mostly cultural.
Yeah.
Based, where we struggle with allowing ourselves to have a conversation with somebody else that is professionally trained to help us decompress, or to help us go through a situation that is affecting us emotionally. As an immigrant mom of two in America, how are you raising your children at the same time with the idea that mental health is something that may affect you based on the work you do? And how should moms that are immigrants across America and across the globe raise their children to be successful in realization that mental health is an issue that, again, has not really been resolved well?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little story about this. It was during the Trump administration, and we had a conference, an immigration lawyer conference, that ALA conference that I mentioned. It's a great network of just like support and solidarity, resources, just everything. And there was a panel from like the Lawyer Assistance Project or Lawyer Assistance Program in Illinois, which is like free therapy because being a lawyer is a stressful job, no matter what kind of lawyer you are. So there's this, services that we can access. And then there was somebody that provides therapy to lawyers, but also to like immigrant clients as well for various things. So anyway, there was a panel on this, and there was a woman at my table who I really, really respect. And she is an immigration lawyer, but she's in practice with one of her children as well. So I know her adult child and anyway, she basically was saying how the family sat her down and said, that she was seeming quite angry because there was all these restrictive policies and bans and this and that and mass deportation threats and everything, and it was just like all consuming. And the family said, like, I think maybe therapy, would you go and talk to somebody? And so she said it kind of out in the open, and she said, I started going to talk to someone and it's just been great. And I heard her say that. And then I heard the panel, and I just kind of thought, okay, everybody's like normalizing this, and this woman that I really respect is kind of just saying this out in the open. I thought, okay, maybe that's something that I could do, because I'm also kind of feeling really like angry and like upset and frustrated about things. And so I think by normalizing it, by having these conversations, it makes people feel like there's nothing wrong with it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. This is like a helpful thing that you can go and you can get tools that will enable you to like, establish boundaries or recognize, just like tips. It's not just all lying down on a couch talking about when you were like a child, which you can do that too, but it's just, it's not, there's different benefits to speaking to a professional. So I think if you can normalize it, if you can have these conversations, this is kind of why I wanted to bring it up here as well, so that people know this is a really acceptable and helpful thing for people to do. And it's a conversation that I have with my kids where I'm like, oh, mommy went to see her, therapist. She's like a doctor that kind of helps me like talk through like feelings and stuff. And I know that there's like, I have some lawyer mom friends whose kids are also going to therapy. I think for some kids, they're dealing with these big feelings and it's like hard for them to know how to process it. So I think the more we have these conversations, the better we're going to be. And I just wish everybody could feel the benefits as well from therapy, and I think more people would be accessing it if they knew truly what it was like.
So therapy is critical. I am one of those people who was raised in a family where you were asked the question, why are you crying? Like you're not supposed to cry. I was raised in a family where I was expected to keep my chest up at all time and to do what was required and not complain about anything. And so by looking at myself over the years, as I continue to develop my professional career, I realized that there are these stigmas that we have grown up with and we have migrated with, and part of that is being comfortable to speak to somebody because you're either struggling in your marriage or you're struggling in business or you're struggling in your relationship, whatever struggle it is, that there is opportunities where you can actually sit with a professional who can help you decipher what it is that you're going through and be able to find a solution that helps you as a person. So here's a question for you. For immigrants who are struggling with the idea of speaking about their personal struggles, for immigrants who feel they're man enough or they're woman enough or they're big enough and they don't need to talk to somebody to help them overcome an emotional turmoil, what is the call you would send to them?
I would say, why not try it, right? Why not just see what it's like? I think people, and I certainly did, have a different idea of what a therapy is actually like. It gives you coping skills. It gives you more perspective on yourself, right? It gives you this awareness, this self-awareness. So even if you don't necessarily have a problem or it can just help to improve. I mean, for me, it's just given me this additional self-awareness. It helps me be, I think, a leader to my team. It helps me, kind of balance all these different parts of my life. And ultimately, I'm a better person for having tried it. And I would just say, why not give it a try? I also will give a shout out to some non-profits that I know. Like, for example, in Chicago, there is a non-profit that is a food bank, but they also provide social services and other mental health services. Nourishing Hope is what it's called, and our team has volunteered there as a group, but there's other resources there. So I would look to community resources as well for people to see, and I would just say, why not try it? There's a reason so many people are talking about it being beneficial, because it's beneficial. So give it a try and see.
If there's one thing I can take away from what you said, because this is evidence in my personal life, it is this the tools you get out of a conversation with the professionals, where you're able to see yourself, and using those tools you're able to learn how to overcome a situation that you may be going through. So
Yeah,
thank you for that.
absolutely. Yeah, and it helps you help other people, and that's ultimately what I want. I'm a helper, and I want to help other people. And if I can become a better helper, why wouldn't I be? So,
Of course. So many immigrants find the U.S. immigration process overwhelming. At least I know for me it was at the very beginning. What are some of the common misconceptions you have encountered, and how do we address these misconceptions, and how are you addressing them with your clients?
Yeah, there are a lot of, it's a very complex system. So there are a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions. I think, I always start out by explaining just how old and outdated the US immigration system is. And I think if you give people that framework and you kind of think of like how we're talking now and how we're interacting and like the way that we're working, like if you think about what was life like 30 years ago, and imagine that the immigration system was kind of developed then, and then you start to think of like, oh, but how we all with this remote work and travel and Zoom and all this kind of stuff, podcasting, none of this was here. So it's easy to then have some perspective for how the outdated immigration system can really impact everything. So I think that that's kind of what I try to explain to people. And then from there, my job is to hopefully explain things to people in a way that makes it easy to understand. And I would also say that not every immigration lawyer, most immigration lawyers have a part of immigration law that they really focus in. So you're not going to necessarily have an attorney that does asylum and will also do like an extraordinary ability green card. You'll probably have people that do different niches within immigration is generally what you find.
Okay, very interesting. So you were a managing founder of your farm. Obviously, you've been in business and very successful, so congratulations. For immigrants who are looking to come to America for business, or they're here and they want to get into business, how and where do we get started?
So for immigrants that are here, I would say we need to first assess what your options are in terms of from an immigration point of view, right? So we need to put all the options on the table, try to navigate through them, figure out really which ones are even an option for you. And then from there, we try to analyze which ones might be the best fit for it. Are there pros and cons, things like that might work. And so, for example, if you're setting up a startup business where you're raising venture capital or money from people that invest in startups, there might be this additional this option that's available to you that would not be available to somebody who's setting up a different type of business. Or if you are from a certain country, you might have access to other visa options that other people don't have. So it can be complex, and we need to really kind of dig into your specific situation. I think the thing to know is it's not a one size fits all. Everybody has a friend who's done something or other, but their situation might not be the same as yours, and there could be just something that really separates that from your situation to try to see. So I would say people need individual advice from someone who really focuses in that area of immigration to really give them and guide them as well about what would be the most suitable.
Talking about knowing what's you're suitable to doing, are there any common hurdles, if I may put it that way, that we immigrants face when we're looking to get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think apart from immigration, there may be some other hurdles that people face, like maybe access to capital, right? Not maybe having difficulties getting loans or financing, because if you're not a US citizen, you might be considered as a bigger risk. So things like that. Then there's also the hurdles relating to, just not being from here. So not having like a big network of, your dad or mom's friend who, just like we don't have that because we just came here. So we don't have, a big like legacy of like family or friends or neighbors, so it can be harder to build up a network as well. So there's those kind of challenges, but I think immigrants are, I know, very resourceful, determined. I think it takes a lot to get to the US, and I find that there's nothing better than an immigrant entrepreneur, and there's nobody that wants their business to succeed more than somebody in that kind of position.
As an immigrant yourself, what challenges did you face in maintaining your Irish heritage while integrating it into the American society? And with that, how do you encourage your customers to balance the two?
Look, I think it got kind of also chatting about being in Chicago and being Irish. It's like everybody wants to be Irish. Everybody is Irish. St. Patrick's Day is, huge here. So, it is not that hard to maintain your Irish identity in a city like Chicago. And if anything, it just like made me just even more proud to be Irish, seeing the love that people have for my country, and just like thinking about how small of a country we are and how big, like the big impact that we have had on the world, from such a small nation. It makes me like really proud to see. And then earlier this week I was at an event with people from Northern Ireland, and there was a minister from Northern Ireland, Minister Conor Murphy, Joe Kennedy, who's the special envoy, been appointed to work on issues in Northern Ireland by President Biden. Were there, and lots of businesses from Northern Ireland as well. And just like, even though I'm from Dublin, so in the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland is just up the road from us, right? And just like seeing the progress that's been made in Northern Ireland, and seeing the work, especially on the peace process, and it just also makes me just extra proud to be from the island of Ireland. So yeah, but it's easy to cling to that when you're in Chicago, and also I still sound like exactly the same way. For 20 years my accent hasn't changed at all, so the minute I open my mouth, people are like, oh, are you Irish, or where are you from? So it's like the constant conversations about Ireland, which I'm happy to have, of course.
That is fantastic. Given your experience representing a wide range of immigrant clients, from musicians to multinational companies, what are some of the most common unique immigration challenges that these different groups face?
Every situation is going to be unique, right? So that's the thing about it. I would say for timing can be an issue, for a universal issue for people, right? People wanting to be here on a certain date, with things, maybe people not getting started as soon as they should have, or things like that, and that can be tricky, especially for the likes of musicians, if there's gigs that are booked. And the interesting thing about music visas is that you really need to file the case with evidence of the gigs that are going to be happening, but then people are reluctant to book the gigs because they don't have the visa. But it's like a cart before the horse type of thing, and you won't get the visa until you've booked the gigs. And so I would just say my tip to everybody is like, things generally always take longer than you would imagine, and that it even in the best case scenario, right, it's much easier to slow down an immigration process than it can be to speed it up, and you're never going to have too much time. So it's never too early to at least inform yourself. And my thing is like, I want to get as many resources to people as possible. Like, I've written an ebook for immigrant startup founders. I'd actually be happy to share a complimentary link for people to download it if you'd like. But
yes,
they can
definitely
download that. But it's like resources that I wish I had as as an international student. And so I would say there are some common hurdles, but the sooner you start to look into this process, you're just going to give yourself the best shot at getting through a process in a timely manner for you.
So I'm going to bring you back to 2024 elections in America. Mm-hmm. For immigrants facing potential deportation or legal challenges in the U.S., how should they start preparing? What resources or steps should they take immediately to pursue, to protect their rights to stay within the borders of the US, given that where we at this day, the election can go either. Trump can become president, and we have these massive deportations that remind me
Yeah.
of what the US looked like in the 1960s. Um, and on the other hand, Harris can become the president, and so hopefully the Democrats can give immigrants a platform where they can work toward their residency and then eventually citizenship and naturalization. But
Yeah.
how should they prepare now based on the truths that we are facing today?
Okay, so the first thing I would say is the rest of us who are not in that situation need to, US citizens, right, make sure that we do everything we can so that that is not people's reality come January, right? So, and that really means, putting in this work. There's less than 50 days left to the election, and as I mentioned, I'm on the Irish Americans for Harris Walls committee, and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that that doesn't happen. And I also think we need to have these conversations, though, because I heard a segment on NPR. I love NPR. I'm always listening to it. But there was a woman who was interviewed. She was at a Trump rally, and they were asking her about these mass deportation signs, and she said, they were saying, like, is this practical to think that you could deport like 12 million people, and what would that look like, and how could that happen? And then she said, well, I don't think he doesn't actually mean it. Like, he's only going to deport the bad ones, right? Or he's only going to deport the criminals and da-da-da-da-da, right? And when you think about it, it's like President Obama actually had a priority for deportation, right? The administration recognized that you can't, even if you wanted to, which they didn't, you can't deport 12 million people, right? We have limited resources here. And let's put our resources into people that are like aggravated felons, that, there's like a list of people that are determined to be, a high priority for deportation. So, President Obama had that as the priority for deportation, and the Trump administration got rid of that on almost day one and basically made everybody in the US a priority. Everyone who was undocumented was a priority for deportation. So I think that there is a bit of a misconception that Democrats want everybody in and open borders and it doesn't matter and we don't care who you are. That's not the truth either, right?
Right.
So I think that it is not realistic to think that 12 million people could be deported. I think the economy would completely collapse, right? These people have, they're either renting houses, own houses, they have kids in school, they're working. What would happen if they all went away, right? It would be disaster. So that's one thing. And I think that, I just really hope that we never get to that point. But I don't know what you can do to kind of prepare to be deported. It's I would say take care of your mental health as well, because that is a hard thing to live with, right? And I know that there is this anxiety is permeating down through all people, all like immigration statuses, right? Obviously, if you're undocumented, you're at the highest risk. So there's that. But I mean, I've even spoken to naturalized US citizens who are worried about what might happen. Could their citizenship be rescinded, or could it be revoked, and things like this. So I think that we need to recognize that these are real fears that people have. We can't dismiss them, that people feel this way for a reason. And so I think we need to listen, and we need to understand why people are feeling. We understand why they're feeling.
So the rhetoric out there is immigrants are straining our economies. They're straining our local governments. They're straining our hospital systems. They're straining our communities. They're straining every part of government in almost every state that you can face. And that's kind of the rhetoric that is out there. But do you think that immigrants have a role to play in shaping the future of the US economy, and particularly in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship? And if so, does that balance what the fallacy is out there that we are straining the systems?
Yes, I mean, I am not an economist, but all the economic data shows that immigrants always contribute more than they take from any economy. And there's a reason why the likes of St. Louis were looking to actually bring more immigrants and migrants to the city, because they had done that in the past and it had been really beneficial. It kind of reinvigorated the city, new businesses, people that were there to work and create jobs as well. So I would just say, like, let's look at the data and see if this is really what you're concerned about. I mean, there's data that we can look at to see if this truly is the case, and it's not. It's just, this is all part of the talking points that are used to go towards anti-immigrant, rhetoric, policy, things like this, but the data never supports any of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon we've been speaking to Fiona McEntee. Is the founding and managing attorney of McEntee Law Group, a nationally recognized immigration law firm. Originally from the country of Ireland, Fiona came to the US as an international student and is now a dual US-Irish citizen. With over 16 years of experience, she has become a leading advocate for immigrants, specializing in extraordinary ability visas and immigration options for startups. Fiona is also an award-winning author and advocate, recently publishing her second book, U.S. Immigration Options for Startups. Through her work, she helps clients achieve their American dream while promoting diversity and inclusion. For those of us who've lasted this long having this amazing conversation with Fiona, where can they find you on social media?
Thanks so much, Martin. That was a mouthful there. We are on all the platforms. Like, I'm on Instagram, US Visa Lawyer. LinkedIn is a good one to find me. Just my name, Fiona McEntee. The firm also has their own, we have our own social media through the firm. So that's pretty much it. Like, I think if there's a social media platform there, we're likely on it. Well, the mainstream ones, let me just add that. But yeah, we can get in touch with us lots of different ways, and we've tons of resources for people to share.
Fantastic. Listen, I have had a tremendous time. I am so glad we had you this afternoon. I want to be respectful of your time. I hope we can get to speak again sometime soon. And we're actually looking to work on a debate probably sometime next year on the same topic that we've been having here. And maybe if we get to that time, we'll reach out and see how we can collaborate. If there is anything my team and I can do to support you, to help you, please do not hesitate to let us know. We would be so glad to be a part of your success.
Thank you, Martin, and thanks for the work that you're doing. Having these conversations is so important, and it was just an honor to be invited on your show. So I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you again for your time. Let's talk soon.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
You betcha.